Hello and welcome to the podcast series Academic Adventures with Dr. Heriot-Watt. Join us as we uncover the authentic experiences of PhD scholars, one university at a time. Listen to the audio experience of this podcast series on Spotify.
Today we have with us Dr. Kamaljit Singh, who is currently a associate professor in Heriot-Watt University, and he has completed his PhD from University of New South Wales, Australia, and he has done several postdoc positions in the UK, in Germany, in France. So we'll talk a lot about his experiences and to learn from his journey. So welcome, Kamaljit Singh. How are you?
Thank you, Harshit. I'm good, thank you, and thanks for having me here. And I'm really excited to share my experiences and having a chat with you.
It's a pleasure to have you. So thank you very much for your time. And I know you are very busy, but thank you so much for taking the time out and be a guest on my podcast. And I'm definitely very positive that we will get to learn a lot from you, and my listeners would be very much be uh, learn from your journey, and it will definitely shape their thought process. So to start with, would you mind sharing your journey from a small town in Punjab to Australia and then now to UK?
Yeah, sure. I can start with that. Yeah, so I originally my village, our farming land is in district Moga. But I spent a lot of time in a shop for like more than 14 years, like since my childhood, and where I did all my studies. Uh, and then I moved to Ludhiana for engineering. It's a small college over there, GNA college. And then I got a place that I'm not sure if you know this, PEC, Punjab Engineering College. It's in Chandigarh.
I see.
So I did my master's over there, but my bachelor's was in civil engineering. The master's, I selected environmental engineering because I was very keen to go into that field. Then I spent a couple of years after my master's at PEC, like doing research project. My intention was to get experience in the also in the meantime I was applying for different scholarships. And then I had this opportunity from the University of New South Wales in Australia. Then I moved there. I did my PhD. Lots of ups and downs, like everyone knows. Then it was good opportunity for me. I found a job as a postdoc in Germany. I was hired by the Max Planck Institute in Göttingen, but I moved down to another city called Saarbrücken. I spent 2.5 years over there. Then I moved to a European lab. It's called ESRF, European Synchrotron Radiation Facility. Spent about 2 years, and in these like 2.5 in Germany and 2 years here, it was mostly Department of Experimental Physics. But we were doing quite a lot of like very similar work when I did my PhD. My PhD work is related to contaminant transport in cold regions. And we were looking into 2D or 3D imaging, like CT scanning, to track down the contaminants in soils or any porous media. So it was very like continuation, but the topic was slightly, the department was slightly different. So, but then after that, I had a really nice opportunity to move to Imperial College London, the same department you come from,
Yeah,
the Department of Earth Science and Engineering. And I spent about 5 years there, and it was a really great experience there, learning from many different people, from PhD students, postdocs, professors. And after that, I got into the University of Heriot-Watt University here, and as a permanent position, first as assistant professor, and then as an associate professor. So this is the journey. So, but at Imperial, it was the whole project was related to underground CO2 storage. But again, the similarities and the common things between all the projects, among all the projects, is like 3D imaging of porous media. And we continue to do the same thing here. I've got like average size group. We got several PhD students, 5 PhD students at the moment, 2 postdocs, and 3 PhD students starting soon in September, and one more postdoc starting. So we're
amazing.
slowly growing with time. Yeah.
Amazing. So that's why I mentioned to our viewers earlier, right, that we'll get to know the whole spectrum. So like right from being a student, a PhD student, to now hiring so many PhD students, it will be a good learning for all of us. And then to start with, you did mention a lot about different aspects like scholarships, like the topic, the 3D imaging and things that you are working on. So would you mind telling us what motivated you in the first place to look into this environment? Obviously, we all know environment is very important, but what motivated you? You know, like how did you write your SOP saying, oh, you know, I'm very motivated to do something in coal or otherwise, how the pollutants are getting into the soil
Yeah.
and stuff.
First of all, actually select like when I selected environmental engineering doing masters, I was inspired by my sister because she was 1 year. She's 1 year older than me, and she selected environmental sciences as a master. So I learned quite a lot of things while I was finishing my undergrad. So that was a bit of turning point from there. And that also gave me quite a lot of motivation because then I thought, okay, if I want to go to good school, then I need to clear this exam is called GATE, and that gave me quite a lot of boost when I cleared it. But then I had like interest in few topics, but one of these ones was like contaminant transport in soil. And then I was looking into scholarships around. It was a hard journey looking for scholarships, and my marks was not like a superb, like not like 90s. So it took a bit of time to really find people, yeah, professor. But I think throughout this discussion today, we'll go through actually the whole process and maybe
Yeah,
what to do, what not to do.
no, definitely. That's one of the reason, you know, like for this whole podcast series to understand what is the journey, you know, because many a times we see a person at a particular place and we're like, okay, right, but we don't often know the journey. And then the whole idea is to inspire other people who are sitting in, say, small town villages of India, or like irrespective like which location they are in, but you know, if they know the track, how to approach a thing, right, so they will be able to gradually overcome all the hurdles and be where they want to be.
Sure.
So yeah, so if like as you mentioned, like different processes, then applying for scholarships, looking for a professor who would be happy to supervise you and things like that. So would you mind telling us a bit in detail, like what are the different processes and how you started in the first place, right?
Okay.
Uh, uh, and also like what timeline should one look for? So suppose if someone wants to start their PhD in 2024 or say 2025, so what is a good time frame to start looking for all these things?
Yeah, I'll start with the last question. So I think that good
Sure.
time frame is 6 months to 1 year, I would say, because if visa process takes about 2 to 3 months, and then we need to think already in advance. Okay, if you first make up your mind if you want to really conduct or do your research or overseas or in India, because India we got a lot of nice institutions over there as well, and then in terms of the scholarships and looking for like different projects, so there I think there are several different ways of doing it. One is, for example, some university or many university they advertise positions. For example, I'll give you one example with my current university. Then I'll give you like in Australia. So we have James Watt scholarship is called James Watt scholarship here, and those scholarships we advertise around like December to March. It varies every year. But in that, like for each department has got a set number of scholarship and that is given to different academics and they advertise. So there are different topics. So it's not set topic every year. And the people can apply. So they can look into and they can apply for those positions. And or let's say first they need to decide which topic they are interested in and then they can apply. But also I think it's nice if they see or people anybody sees a position, it's good to have a like a short chat with the professor, send an email showing interest, and then there are other ways around it because, for example, let's say what we did, like I was with a friend when we were searching for PhD position. So what I did, so I made a diary and then I noted down, okay, these are the field I would like to go, not too much. Environmental engineering is really broad, and I don't want to actually go too much and then spend too much time. So like I wanted to be focused, search into this, and then I noted down, okay, these are the topics I would like to go for, and which universities are actually pursuing these ones, and professor who's interested in these topics or what sort of research they do. And this is another way of doing. I think this is also good. For example, you don't have to wait for scholarships to appear, like in December or January. So if you like some topics, you like a professor, and then you contact the professor. They say, "I'm interested," and if you have any, if you know of any opportunity, another option is like many countries they have their own scholarship streams. India, I need to check, to be honest. It's been a while. For example, we got few students from Nigeria, so they give a lot of scholarship every year actually. And there are other countries like we get a lot of students. These are funded by their own country.
Mhm.
And I remember I made a list like 20, that's a long time ago, like more than 10 years ago. So I was making a list in India, fellowships and stuff.
Mhm.
So I think it's good to first of all look into those, what scholarships are like can be targeted. So these are like funded by India, for example, as we are talking to at the moment to Indian audience. And the other ones are like advertised by universities. The third one, one I want to talk is University of New South Wales because they got every year competition, and I hope I think they still have this one. These are like university level competitions. So people submit their applications, they provide their documents, and then they shortlisted, and then they can be interviewed or get selected for this one. So there's another stream or route for that, and this is not only for PhDs, but they also have for masters, full masters by research, full scholarships. Yeah, and yeah, I think maybe I would like to mention one thing. So if you like a professor, you like topic, I think it's also in when you're writing your statement of purpose. I think it's better to do a little bit of research because what I get a lot of emails. I can understand people's like because they're busy, they want to contact so many different professors, so what they copy paste all the emails, and we can see that. Uh, which is fine. So if we like the student, then it's fine. So we can't give the scholarship directly. We can ask them to apply for the
Mhm.
funding, especially let's say if we got funding for that. But I think it's if you really determined to do PhD and you really want to go into research, it's better to really shortlist people or professor you want to go and do some research on that, and then say, okay, if you want to talk to the email, don't make long emails, but yes, talk to the through the topic. I've gone through your profile, and these are the few things I really liked. And and sometimes people miss those details and they just copy paste the emails, which is okay, but doesn't put any good impression, I would say. Yeah.
Right. And I have a very quick question on this one. So, with the advent of Chat GPT and Gen AI,
Ah,
how do you decipher like if the article is actually written by a student or if it is through Chat
yeah.
GPT or Gen AI?
It's difficult to find out. To be honest, I don't mind at this stage because when they're applying, they if it's not ChatGPT, then it used to be like the professors. They used to get help from professors, right, to write a nice SOP. So it's both ways. Is like goes this sort of similar story. But thing is, this we find out because at the interview stage, we'll really uh, go to the depth of person who they know, and then we know what's happening when what they wrote in there, and. I don't mind to answer your question. I don't mind if they have taking help from here and there, but they should write what they know, not like extra information which they don't know. Yeah.
Right. So, main point is like research is important, and then it's better to do a little bit of research on the professor's profile rather than sending just cold generic email.
Yeah, professor's profile, and also when you select a professor, yes, you really do research on your topic, and then both they link together. So professor and the research over there. Yes, it's good to spend a bit of time. And if let's say because these days you can find a lot of the information on Google Scholar, uh,
Research gate.
everyone has got their own paper listed there.
Yeah.
And you could read those papers actually, not everything, but yes, some of them. It increases the knowledge as well. Yeah, I understand. Yeah, because it could be difficult to go through all the details of the paper because they are already written not very simple languages sometimes, most of time actually. So at
Right.
least to get a little bit of the information what this paper is about and whether it fit to my interest, that would be actually that really helps actually.
That's right. Right. And then bringing you a little back to our initial conversation, when we talk about the application process, is there any set standardized test like GRE, TOEFL, or something for admission in, say, University of New South Wales, Australia, or otherwise for Heriot-Watt University?
For both, IELTS actually works very well, and they have got different like minimum marks over there, and they can students I think they can check. But IELTS actually we don't have GRE and not those stuff actually here in our
Yeah, GRE
university.
not in the UK, but how about in Australia?
Also, no, not in
No.
Australia. So, at least when
Okay.
I did my studies, there was nothing like that. Yeah,
Okay, okay.
yeah,
Because obviously GRE is one of the major criteria in the US, so that's why I wanted to.
true,
And obviously, like
true.
I know of the UK that they don't need GRE, but I just
Yeah,
wanted to check
yeah.
for Australia. Okay,
No,
great.
this is the
And then,
only test, English test we need to go through actually. Yeah, yeah.
and then is scholarship related with the amount that you like the number that you score in your IELTS or TOEFL test?
Sorry, I didn't get your question.
So will the scholarship, like the chance whether you get a scholarship or not, be dependent on your IELTS or TOEFL test result?
Not that I'm aware of because there's a it doesn't give you any like extra marks on the application. It's a pass of like it's like a must thing to do. And if they let's say if they ask you to go like 6.5, if you get 8.5, you'll get the same sort of priority. I don't
Okay,
think there's anything not that I'm aware of.
okay,
Yeah, yeah.
okay,
It's sometimes also some universities they say okay yes if you they can give you even without English test, they can give you a conditional offer, even with scholarship. So the English IELTS it's compulsory, but it it's not necessary. People don't count as like during deciding the outcome of an application because some like
okay,
we do like we did a couple of times. So we offered a conditional offer letter to a couple of candidates with the condition, let's say, with the couple of references and with the English test. So this is like a secondary thing, yeah, the English test, yeah,
okay, okay,
yeah.
okay. That's good to know actually, because because in India people do their research. Like someone is really good in research, but maybe their language of instruction could be a little different. So they shouldn't feel that they are on the backseat because they are not that good in English.
Yeah, yeah. No, no, true, yeah, yeah. Uh, but just passing with the minimum score is sufficient, I guess, yeah, with English, yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know. And then when you were like looking for say your PhD degree, and as you mentioned, like you were reaching out to professors here and there. So what were the things that you were looking for? So obviously, one professor who is working in your area of interest, right? But what other factors do you look for in the university or in the country or with the professor to make a choice?
Yeah, I think at that time, I was lucky. I was going, I want to go to high rank university, but sometimes it doesn't matter to be honest. Okay, University of New South Wales, I think those days they were like number 40 in the world, and I was very excited. Yes, okay, I need to apply for like high rank universities only.
Yeah.
I can understand, yes, because some peop people think, okay, their career will be like great after when they finish from high rank university. It's true in a lot of cases, but it's not necessary. It's not always a compulsory case because I've seen a lot of like students, PhDs we hire for postdoc. They come from very small universities. So this, so but this I had this in mind. Like to answer your question, I had this in mind. Okay, high rank university, a good topic. That sort of criteria I had. And a country like easygoing country I wanted to go. For example, Australia. I felt like it's easygoing. Or Canada. Those days. And like all the Punjabis, they like to go Canada, Australia.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, were there any other universities that you were targeting as well? Like, obviously, you got into New South Wales, but are there any other
Yes, I
universities you
did.
were targeting?
I did target actually and I did apply in Canada, and I think one in the US. But I got the offer letter, but there was no scholarship. Then I didn't get the scholarship, and then I got scholarship from two universities in Australia. One was James Cook University, and one is the University of New South Wales. But then University of New South Wales offer was better because in James Cook they were giving half scholarship, like fee
Oh,
waiver.
okay.
But here it was like full scholarship, yeah,
Full
which
scholarship.
is nice, yeah.
Okay, okay, nice. And then when we talk about a scholarship, and I think you have already covered it in a little bit in your previous answers, but are there any, say, structured website or somewhere where where students can look for scholarships, uh, both for, like, say, Australia or otherwise in the UK? Because, maybe on a country, say, a government of India specific website or somewhere where they can easily go and have a list of all the universities and what are the different scholarships that are available?
Yeah, I think these days, at least I'm aware that any scholarships, any PhD position coming out like from our university, they list on PhD. I think it's called phd.com,
Okay.
and there's a dedicated website called if I'm not wrong, it's called phd.com, and it's free to access. That you don't have to register, and then people list it, and they also provide a link. It could be that a link goes to if application goes to their private things, but it's good to search, and then you can directly Google for the university and then say, okay, this is scholarship. I think that's a quite good resource to find these days. For the last few years, we've been advertising on this one. Yeah.
Okay. And then would you suggest, like, reaching out to professor or, say, following professor on LinkedIn would be a good option? Because many a times I do see people posting if they have, say, a PhD or a postdoc vacancy, they just post it there.
Uh-huh. No, I think it's good because these days social media has made it like quite like accessibility has increased quite a lot. So if some people are posting it on LinkedIn, so they should be willing to take questions on LinkedIn. Let's put it this way. So I don't mind actually. I wouldn't mind contacting them on LinkedIn. I got a lot of messages on LinkedIn as well, and I got a lot of messages on through email because through email then okay you can put your CV nicely. Although you can also put through LinkedIn, but then it's documented very well into the emails, and so it's again, I think it's a personal thing from different professor to other professor. I think would change, yeah. But the more traditional way of doing sending an email is probably better.
Okay. So, like, my question or my rationale behind that was, like, if someone, suppose, approaches a professor through LinkedIn or something, so will it still be considered like professional and you are coming in through the right direction, or otherwise, it's like, oh, you should have actually sent me an email?
Yeah, this is again a very personal thing, so I don't mind.
Hmm.
But one suggestion is like it happened a couple of times. I got a message on LinkedIn, then there's a flower, like emoji, and this person was sending flowers every day to me. I think there's this sort of things we should avoid. Otherwise, I think
Right.
it's fine. Yeah, yeah. Like
Okay.
if you want to keep like unless you know the person, keep it formal. And
Right.
if you know the person, you met the person in conference, then you can send anything if you got a good understanding with the person. Yeah.
Right. But still, like, pestering on a daily basis with a flower doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
Nice,
don't know.
nice.
That's a bit strange experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then, again, going back to one of your answers where you mentioned, and obviously we all go through that ups and downs in our PhD career. So we would like to know what were the most challenging time in your PhD career journey, and how did you
Uh,
overcome that?
I had a lot of challenges to be honest, because one thing was those days we didn't have this video communication very much, and my supervisor he left for sabbatical for 1 year, and that was quite. Although we chatted for a few times, but it was quite challenging. Um, but then there's another issue was because we didn't have a full-fledged lab, and it was all experimental PhD, and that's where we I struggled quite a lot. So it took me like more than a year to set up the whole experimental thing. We didn't have funding for that. I didn't know. Uh, I think maybe one more suggestion. I'll go. Okay, maybe I'll talk a bit later
Okay.
that but let me finish this, and then maybe one suggestion I
Sure.
can. Again, it's a bit of personal choice.
Mhm.
But then, yeah, it took me ages to finish, like set up the whole thing, and then it was about visualization, creating a 2D visualization cell. where we could see how the contaminants can move. We can visualize and analyze those things. And then I think the next challenge I wanted to make it 3D, but I didn't know where to go because we didn't have any at the university. And it took well, it took me a while, but it turned out to be I started contacting companies, the people because of the CT scanning is one thing. CT scanning is like what you see in medical CT scanning in hospitals. It makes a 3D image of, let's say, brain, but those resolutions are very coarse, like 100 micrometer, 200 micrometer. But what I was looking for, 3D images of small samples with the resolution of 1 to 2 micrometer, 10 micrometer, let's say. And then I started contacting different companies who were selling these machines. And they actually somehow put me in touch with people from a university next door to us. It's called Australian National University. It's a really nice university over there. And that solved a lot of problem for me because when I contacted them, and they were very welcoming. And I think we need people like them. So they're very nice department, very welcoming. And then they invited me, and then so we discussed about my project. And they are the people, I think, the pioneer people, like researchers, who developed microcity for subsurface flows. And what they did, I was a bit lucky in that because they said, okay, it's nice, we'll help you. And then they gave me an office space, access to the machines, access to the software without any contract. So, like,
Oh,
my
great.
supervisor also didn't know, but then I told him when I met him, like after a few months. But that solved quite a lot of problems. But those are like challenging part because we didn't have experimental facilities, and I was hired as an experimental student. And the suggestion here is like what I wanted to say is maybe you can also inquire if you are going for PhD, which is experimental, maybe it's better if while you're discussing with the professor and just briefly you can mention, okay, what sort of experimental facility, if that professor is interested, for example.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong in not in the first email, like saying, okay, what facility you have.
Right.
Maybe throughout the conversation you can discuss about that. Yeah. So this is the I realized this one. That's why when we started here, so we my effort was like I will set up my own lab. So there was a PhD student, so I helped him. Like we worked together in the lab and set up everything there. Yeah. So
Mhm.
this suggestion I would really give if you want to avoid those stresses, very big stress.
Right. 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 So thank you for that. So it's also important to understand if you have those facilities available so that you don't have to go through a number of doors, knock on a number of doors to get your work sorted, which makes absolute sense. So just on the backside of this, I would also like to understand how important is the role of a supervisor in your whole PhD? Because like in many good universities, it's more like supervisors are there to help you construct, but it's like you are left on your own to experiment because that's how you learn a number of other things as well. So that's my first part of the question. And the second part is, does the research group also plays a role? So suppose if a professor, as you mentioned, like you have 5 PhDs, 2 or 3 postdocs, and a few more joining. So does that structure also help a new PhD student?
No, sure. I think this is a very good question, an important one, because definitely yes, the research group plays a role. And for example, if there's a new professor, so maybe the research group doesn't exist, but then the professor has the responsibility to take care of the student. So it's for example, like how it helps as a part of group for us is what we do, for example, so I've got like one-to-one meetings with people. So I would generally like to see what they're doing and if they need any help. And then let's say we go to group meetings and people can discuss about mostly about difficulties and what important things they achieved or stuff like this. So it's important for this because then other group members can get engaged and then they can help. For example, um, for experimental work, so what we did, my first PhD was a student here. So this person didn't have any experience with high pressure temperature condition, but we were looking into a new topic, looking into hydrogen storage, underground hydrogen storage at high pressure temperature conditions. So I had experience with high pressure temperature, but not with hydrogen. So what we did all the experiments together. Like first, like we spent like weeks together doing experiments. So it was my responsibility to really train him first. And this is what we like to do. So what we do is, so we make sure that there's somebody is there to help you. Supervisor role is to guide, and if needed, jump into places where the person has to steer. But okay, I'll talk about the different stages of PhD. But this is I'm talking about a very initial stage when you need more help from your supervisor, because PhD is the whole thing is like slowly you're getting independent. Okay, we don't expect PhD students to be independent. Okay, if they are, this is fantastic, but we don't expect like first day they come, okay, they know everything. So in the experimental parts, what we do, okay, so for example, there's a person, we got very set format that we conduct a couple of experiments with the student, and new student will shadow the person. Initially, it was my student, the person actually he shadowed me, and then slowly, like the next experiment, I'll let him do while I'm standing there. Once I'm really confident this person can do experiments like on his own, then we sign off and the person. And this is what we then moved on to the next student. So next student doesn't have to learn from me, but next can learn the same thing from the another student. So I don't need to. Okay, I had to spend a lot of time initially, but then I don't need to spend. But again, if needed, I would definitely go. For example, we just went to conduct some experiments in France. So I was there, like helping with the students. And now in Switzerland, we went last year. So I was there, like because we got only few days to do experiments, and these are like 24 hours experiments. So we have to shift, like make shifts, different shifts, and then supervisors, student, everyone has to work hard. So there's no excuse for supervisors. So in terms of the if you got a good nice group with the postdocs, what we do also is we link if the topics are very similar. So what we do, we link students to a particular postdoc. What it does actually, it helps in both ways. The student learns from because they have more time together, learns from postdoc. But at the same time, postdoc gets experience in supervising student. So it works really both ways over there. So this sort of actually we do group meetings, we do one-to-one meetings. So as a supervisor, so we got very big responsibilities, because if we just leave them alone, this is not nice. Like, for example, leave like okay, you bring your topic and you do, and that's not.
Yeah.
And at least in my research team, we don't have this sort of way of doing it. Yeah.
Right. So my question is like when a student is looking for professor, so what are the ways in which they can understand these kind of things? Like if the professor has a good research group with him or her, or otherwise, how supportive they are in terms of like, is there a way to basically understand how good the cohesiveness is within your research group as such?
No, it's very hard. For example, there's some like for example some professors they have their own website, so you could see for example how big the group is. And this is what we're going to happen now, because our group has gone bigger and bigger, and now we are setting up a website which will should actually come up in a couple of months.
Okay.
It gives you flavor what sort of people are there and what sort of mix. I'm very fortunate to have a really people from many different nationalities. uh, it's I think hardly the nationality repeats, except yeah, we've got two students from Pakistan, but then
Okay.
other no, one student, one postdoc, but then otherwise like we got American, French, Nigerian. Another Nigerian will come actually. So we're gonna repeat again. I'm Indian, so we got some Oman for example, and then Malaysia, China. So you can see from the website profile, okay, what sort of groups this one like is one flavor is like if this is it's really different nationality, different culture of people is that means that well, okay, I won't say okay this gives a flavor, okay this is an excellent group, but maybe okay fitting well in the group, it gives you flavor that yeah you can fit into the well into that. But like to answer your question, yes, it's hard. uh, it's it's really sometimes a gamble. You select a professor. Also, for professor, they they judge you based on what they've seen, and then later on things can go wrong. And it's not a student's fault. It's just maybe topic is difficult and they didn't go very well. And I think again, it's a professor's responsibility to really foresee those things coming, and then maybe if maybe the strategy has to be changed and topic has to be changed. So this is like the professor's responsibility. Yeah. But yes, again, this is very hard to find sometimes unless you've met that professor or group in a conference. And it's not very common for people like students in master's level, they go for conferences. So this is again the restriction. Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then many a times, I think everywhere, like in most of the universities, there is a doctoral advisory committee. So how do you see their role in a PhD journey as such for a student?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So the different country, they have different format for that. And for example, at the University of New South Wales, okay, different groups, they have different strategies. But now within I had a co-supervisor, but we hardly met. Generally, only when there's an issue. Okay, yes, okay, let's decide how to solve the issue. It's administrative issue, let's say.
Right.
Um, but in our teams, not only like my research group, but when I say like we got many different professors, we co-supervise. So we got, let's say, team. So some of my students are like they have got three supervisors. Our university has like made a rule, so we need to have another internal co-supervisor because things have gone wrong in the past. Like let's say professor left the university and then the student doesn't know where to go,
Right.
and his co-supervisor, then there's a already like we know the person can take the responsibility. So we in the supervisory committee, so we have a co-supervisor from the same institution, if not the same department. But then my student, they also got a couple of like industrial supervisor because the projects are funded by industry. And there's one project we're doing in biology, so we got a couple of researchers who collaborator or supervisors from of a biological field in France. So they play a quite very crucial role actually, because they are not there just because to like make a list of supervisors. But nobody wants four supervisors because it's
Right.
hard. Because you want to deal with all the comments from each paper and also each meetings you need to deal with that.
Yeah.
But I generally do only if they bring anything into that into the research. For example, the person from the biological topic, he's the most expert in that. I don't have expertise in much expertise, so he brings a lot of complementary skills in there. And this important another important part of the supervisory committee is that okay, when we choose, okay, we have this supervisors, but let's say the supervisor goes away for a couple of months, the main supervisor, and these days, although we do have this Zoom meetings, Skype meetings, or Teams meeting, but then there's somebody on campus people can discuss in person. So they play quite a nice role actually there. So all of my clique supervisors, they do get engaged. They come to like one-to-one meetings when I organize or one student organizes. We at least we try to organize like every week, every second week, because it depends. I've given like flexibility to students. Either they choose they want to meet me like every week or they want to meet me every 2 weeks. And
Okay.
the maximum flexibility is up to 1 month. Because there's some couple of off-campus students, so they have this flexibility, yeah, that because they work a little bit and then uh, but then uh, so they all the co-supervisors come to the meetings, and this is good, actually great. And I do the same. I co-supervise students and I go to those meetings. Yeah.
Right.
But I think different universities have different, really different sort of setups. I was in the advisory committee meeting for Saudi Arabia. I was not invited to any regular meetings except from like annual reviews or the examination, final examination. Yes. So my role was very limited there. Yeah.
Okay. That's
I hope
that's
I hope it answers your question.
yeah, it does. It does. So essentially, like obviously, as per your like as per what you mentioned, like doctor advisory committee is generally there to help you shape your thoughts, essentially, unless you have like co-supervisors. As per your opinion, it's better, but not always necessary, right? Because many
Yeah.
times you just have like a single supervisor. But then, like a follow up on that is so like obviously you do it very strategic way, like you meet your students say every week or 2 week, or at least once a month. But then many supervisors are there, and you would also agree, again, irrespective of which university they are, because obviously I understand you are also quite busy, but many times supervisors are too busy and they actually couldn't take time. So so essentially, my understanding, or like my question is, what would be the best way for a student from those perspectives? Because again, as you mentioned, like it's a little bit of luck as well, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't know the entire working schedule, or how busy or not busy the professor is, right? So how should a student say have those as a fall safe option, or like so suppose if someone gets into a university, then how should they manage in terms of maybe like building their own contacts, like as you mentioned, like your professor left for a sabbatical, and then you had to reach out to a number of companies, and then they connected you somewhere. So how would you suggest, if someone else gets into similar situation, what are the options that they should think of considering?
Yeah, I think this is yeah, it's a bit sensitive topic, to be honest, if I'm not, if I'm, let me, because the people from a country like I come from, or you come from, the like India, so we got this different mindset up. So we said, okay, no, we've been hired, and then okay, yeah, we'll go with the pace what we've been given, and we don't take it as our right, and that's the
Right.
mistake we really do. It's we students are there, and that's why the professors are there, right? So, and some professors don't understand that, and they don't put student as a like priority. And but this is I think another thing which we need to change the mentality, which is hard, to be honest, for our people. Like because I come from the same culture,
Yeah, yeah,
to consider, like, to, because we've been selected for this job, we are not like donated, right? So like position, and then we have full right to access all the resources, including supervisor's time. And if supervisor doesn't have time, then he doesn't have any right to hire. That's the one thing. And I've seen Harshit, so many times people do complain. I've seen one case very recently. This professor doesn't respond. His thesis has been sitting on the desk for 6 months at least.
okay.
And that's bad, actually, because it affects people want to apply for jobs, and there's no solution, actually. I don't know, no solution in the sense that no straightway answer for that. Solution to this, for example, our university has made recently we made different ways of doing it. So they got committee, and then you need to approach it right way. But yeah, you can ask like for informal meeting with the committee head, that this sort of things happening, because I think it's better to go and discuss rather than wait until the last moment, and then really, because these things are like, they affect mental health a lot, and
Yeah,
people don't realize initially, but then it's like an irreversible process. Then once you go through it, let's say you say, okay, yeah, this is the last phase of 1 year, I'll just pass or somehow. But then later, after 1 year, you realize it's like irreversible process. You can't come back to the same situation. So my suggestion always now for students is like really approach, uh, use a strategy. I think after spending a year or so with the professor, you would know, actually, yes, this person is lazy, for example, and how to reach out to this one, and then also get to know what support is available at the university level. This is really even from the start. Let's say things go wrong, and then what I can do. And every university has the different setup. And for example,
right.
our university has got very nice people sitting on those committees, and they can help you unofficially or officially at the same time. Because for officially, they people have to send an email. That
True.
means this is a bit tricky because students don't raise this issue because what they think they need, which is true, they need a reference letter for postdocs, for example. And this is where it hurts a lot, actually. Then people, and another issue with some academics is they don't know intentionally. They don't know, actually, and they keep doing it because nobody tells them.
Yeah,
And maybe it's right way is to approach them directly and come out of the shyness. Yeah. So I think this is making a nice strategy out of the situation. I think it's the best policy rather than putting everything on your mind and playing with mental health. Yeah. This is
right.
this is my thing. And also, for example, like many. But there's lots of people like in our like team. So we have a rule. So we don't encourage students to work on weekends at all. Well, for example, my one of my students, he graduated just recently. So I think he finished. Yeah, okay. I think people do work, but he finished his PhD 3.5 years. And if you make a strategy, nice schedule, and then it's possible. So if possible, then yes. Okay, although we are now making this podcast for people who want to do like PhD, but when they go into PhD, if
Yeah,
they can,
exactly.
if they can spend like their weekend for something else, then I think that's my suggestion would be there. I'm guilty for that. Even now, I work on weekends, but yeah, my suggestion would be always like my students always like yeah, postdocs. Yeah, don't do that. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, because that's a very interesting point. Because generally, if you talk to any people or any professors, generally, and again, you cannot put everyone in the same bucket, but generally, it's like, oh, it's not a 9 to 5 job, so you have to work extra hours on the weekends and stuff to get a PhD done, right? So it's a very say a different perspective that I am hearing from you, and it actually makes sense because then it may also free up a little bit of your mind so that you can think about something new. And maybe if you are stuck on something in PhD, which we all do, like there are several occasions where you are just stuck at something. So if you get your mind some thinking space and some free time, then they can actually think, or your mind may perform a bit better. And again,
True.
I'm no person from a mental side that I can comment more on it, but like based on experience as such. So that's
No,
a
you're
really good
absolutely right.
strategy.
Absolutely right. So let's say people do work like every day, weekends, and if they change slight bit pattern, and then they say, okay, I'm gonna spend, although let's say I'm gonna work on one of the days or weekend, but I wanna change the spectrum is like a pattern, and I'm gonna do, for example, 1 hour for myself, like exercise during the work time, like even, and that like you're absolutely right. So it just changes your mindset up and freshens up things, and also brings new ideas as well. So
Yeah.
this is very important to like not work 7 days a week.
That makes sense. And let's talk a little bit more from a student's perspective, right? Would you suggest, like, if someone who is trying to get into a PhD, is it necessary to have a research paper or two from their master's or say from their bachelor's, and only then they would be considered in a good university, or otherwise, if they just have genuine interest in a field, and they will have a good chance?
I would say yes, it's not important because let's say somebody is like very fresh graduate from like a master's, and I wouldn't expect like publishing a paper. Uh, like I had a paper because I spent a couple of years after my master's on a research project that I had like a small journal paper and a conference proceedings. But if somebody is expecting that somebody, okay, yes, he published 5 papers or 2 papers before, I think it's for example, when we start PhD, it takes 1.5 years to 2 years to publish the first paper. So it's a, like a quad means if somebody is doing a new masters,
Yeah.
either the person is smart or we need to check the quality of paper. So the two things actually, because I've seen a lot of applications, people have like 5, 6 papers. I was amazed. It's not like national journals, they are international journals. And then we look into quality, then then we got to know, okay, yeah, well, so maybe uh, because it also it affects, it gives an impression what we would be expected of the person. Let's say if they are like very crappy papers, like 6, and then what the student is going to join as PhD, and then what we expect from them to do research, or it's a number of paper they want to focus on. But again, I think some fields are like fast moving or fast, like easy, like probably are not easy, but yes, maybe they can produce papers. And some professors do like, so they might give preferences, but not in my team. So we don't expect people. So okay, I'm making really long answer, but it's not
Yeah, that's
necessary, compulsory. Yeah,
yeah, that's important because again, like thinking from a student perspective, they may not have access to a professor's criteria, right? But then listening
yeah.
from you, because you are like you are on that role and doing this for a good number of years, right? So they can get a perspective that okay, it's not that every professor looks in that way, because there are some professors like you who would also look for like genuine interest rather than a number of papers, whether it's like good or not good. But because many a times, and especially in countries like India, what I have noticed based on my experiences, people put a lot of pressure on the student that you have to get papers, right?
Uh,
Irrespective of the quality and everything. And so they basically struggle to get a paper out of their, like, say, master's thesis, or otherwise, even for PhDs. Like, it could be, like, you may be having hard times in your PhD, and you may not have good quality results that you can publish in a good journal, right? But then if the university poses a restriction that you need to have, say, a number of journal papers before you can get a PhD, which you would agree, like, that's the situation in many universities in India, at least, right?
yeah.
So it becomes actually troubling for the students. So, like, that's why I wanted to have understanding from you, like, how it works at Heriot-Watt, because obviously that's not the situation at Imperial we work now.
Yeah. No, I think I know five or six or maybe seven or eight colleagues because we sit together many times. So they also don't look into papers, number papers. But you're right. So like for PhD levels, sadly, the things trend has changed and now it's a game, paper game. Like people, oh yeah, we need to publish, and
Yeah,
then something called people lose quality, and they don't realize. But then, yeah, from my point of view, yeah, writing a good paper compared to writing two average papers is, I think it's better to write a good paper. People will then like it. Yeah, but that's a different discussion. I think we can go.
exactly. Yeah,
That's a
definitely.
long
Yeah, that's
discussion.
yeah,
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 about
yeah.
writing papers. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Right. And then if I take you more on, from again, from a student's perspective, so someone who is looking for doing a PhD, so what are different career prospects available? Like, obviously you took the path to become a postdoc, and then, like, become a researcher and then a professor. Like, but what are other career prospects available for a student who is completing their PhD?
Sure. So, for example, let's say in engineering, or maybe especially particularly related to our department. So we got, I would say, three different pathways. One is like you said, postdoc, and then look if you are interested into academia, and then do a postdoc, and then maybe a fellowship. People do apply for fellowships, and then their ultimate, like, final aim is to get a position as an assistant or professor or associate professor. Second, there's some because we are quite our research is quite industry oriented. People do go for they'll try to go for industry job, and this is also quite common. And the third is like in between. So they do research, but they are mostly into R&D sections of industries, and where they do research very similar to what as a postdoc, but then they're part of the company as a like a full-time employee. So these are the like two different options we generally have, and we do help where possible to students. For example, if there's an opportunity for an internship for 3 months, so we can go for that. And for example, one of the projects we are now doing is with the Total Energy, so we'll send a student for a couple of months there. And what it does, it helps making new links, and also they get to know people, and that increases chances to getting absorbed in the same company. Yeah, if they like, yeah, yeah.
Right. So, with this, like, I'm like more towards the end of my questions to you. So, a quick question to you would be, what kind of advice would you give to someone who is, say, sitting in a town in India, right? Maybe remote, maybe well connected, but, like, but someone who has big dreams, aspirations to do their higher studies from abroad. So, what would be your 2 cents or your advice to them?
Yeah, I think these days it's good that the internet has brought everyone like they people from villages they know how to search, and they my advice is like first advice is like do all your research homework very well. If you're contacting professor, you need to know what you're contacting for. It's not like random email. But second, I think my really strong advice is to never give up. There's always a solution, and I follow the path like this. So it's hidden somewhere, but it's a maybe different path, longer path. So if you're determined to do a PhD, or if you're determined to do a PhD in that particular field, and then you will find a way for sure. So yes, doing homework, doing really research before contacting people, and also getting the attitude of like, okay, yes, it's not far. It might take longer, but I will keep going. Yeah. So this is why. Sorry, my advices are very small.
No,
My short
that
advices.
yeah, but short and concise but important. So obviously that makes sense. True.
Sure.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh, for taking your time today. And it was a pleasure to host you on this show. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you for having me. It was pleasure. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us. That's a wrap on Academic Adventures with Dr. Harshit Agrawal. Comment your thoughts and subscribe to my channel for more inspiring stories. Please share this podcast with your friends and fellow enthusiasts. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep growing.